In a whispering world of silence, an eerie house stands where screams are forbidden and silence reigns supreme. Those who dare to break the hushed rule vanish, their souls ensnared by ghostly inhabitants lurking in the shadows. Enter if you dare, but remember, in this house, your silence is your only salvation. In the quaint cobblestone streets of Elmswood, a small gathering convened in the warm, amber-lit living room of Joanna, a local historian and the unspoken matriarch of the group. Her home, filled with antique books and artifacts, served as a meeting point for those enthralled by the mysteries of the town, particularly that of the Whispering Manor. Joanna, a woman in her late 40s, with an inquisitive glint in her eye, sat at the head of the oak table. She was joined by Alex, a young filmmaker with a penchant for the paranormal, Sarah, a skeptical journalist with a sharp wit, and Michael, a tech-savvy drone operator with a fascination for haunted locations. They were united by a common goal: to delve into the enigma of the Whispering Manor and create a documentary that would unveil its secrets. As the evening set in, Joanna spread out old maps and documents on the table. The group leaned in, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of the table lamp. Whispering Manor, Joanna began, her voice steady, yet tinged with unease, is more than just a dilapidated structure. It's a repository of unspoken horrors and untold stories. She pointed to an old photograph of the manor. Built in the late 1800s, it was once the jewel of Elmswood, but as you all know, no one has entered it in the last 50 years. They say you can see the silhouettes of the lost souls at the windows, silently screaming into the void. Alex, his eyes wide with fascination, interjected. And that's what we need to capture. The essence of the manor, its eerie presence. This could be groundbreaking. Sarah, ever the skeptic, raised an eyebrow. Or it could be a wild goose chase. You know, the legends are probably exaggerated. Joanna nodded, acknowledging Sarah's doubts. Perhaps there's truth in the roots of every legend. The manor was built on a land that was said to be cursed by the local tribes. They believed it was a place where the veil between our world and the spirit world was thin. Michael, who had been fiddling with his drone controller, looked up. Do we have any idea about what kind of curse it is? Something that could give us a lead on how we approach this? The details are murky, Joanna replied, sifting through her papers. But it is believed that the curse was cast to avenge a betrayal, something unjustly in a family's history, leading to a vengeful spirit binding itself to the house. The group fell into a contemplative silence, each lost in their thoughts about the upcoming expedition. Joanna finally broke the silence. We need to be careful. If we're going to uncover the truth about the Whispering Manor, we must respect its history and the forces that may still linger there. With a plan beginning to form, the group agreed to meet at dawn. They would venture to the Whispering Manor, armed with cameras, recording equipment, and an unwavering desire to unveil the shadows of the past. As they departed, the wind outside picked up, whispering through the trees as if carrying a secret from the manor itself. Little did they know, their journey would be more harrowing and revealing than any of them could have imagined. As the first light of dawn painted the sky in hues of pink and gold, the team gathered at the edge of the overgrown path that led to the Whispering Manor. The air was crisp, and a thin mist hovered over the ground, lending an eerie atmosphere to the beginning of their expedition. Equipped with their state-of-the-art cameras, drones, and an air of determination, they approached the manor with a mix of excitement and apprehension. The manor itself loomed in the distance, its once grand facade now marred by decay and neglect. Let's get everything rolling, Alex announced, his camera already capturing the surrounding scenery. Remember, we need to document every angle, every possible entry point. This footage is crucial. Michael piloted his drone, sending it soaring above the manor, its camera panning over the decrepit roof and the surrounding barren landscape. Sarah, meanwhile, walked along the perimeter, her handheld camera meticulously recording the cracked walls and the boarded-up windows. The manor stood silent, an imposing sentinel guarding untold secrets. Its windows, dusty and broken, offered no glimpse into the darkness within. As the drone hovered near a window, Michael squinted at his controller's screen, hoping for a sign, a movement, anything. But there was nothing. Just the silent, eerie stillness of the abandoned house. After several hours of filming, the team regrouped. "I don't get it," Sarah said, frustration evident in her voice. "There's nothing. No movements, no shadow, nothing that legends talked about." Alex reviewed his footage, scanning through the frames with a growing sense of disappointment. "It's like the manor is just a manor. Maybe we're in the wrong place." The entrance to the manor, a heavy wooden door, was securely locked, its padlock rusted but firm. "We can't break in," Joanna said firmly. "We need to respect the law and the history of this place. Let's head back and review everything thoroughly. There might be something we've missed." As the team packed up, the manor stood unmoved, its secrets tightly sealed behind its decaying walls. The journey back was quiet, each member lost in their own thoughts, wondering if their quest was in vain. But at Joanna's house, they gathered around the large screen, playing back the footage. The high-definition images showed nothing but the lifeless exterior of the manor, the drone footage offering aerial views of a silent, unyielding structure. "It's like the manor's mocking us," Michael muttered, disappointment lacing his words. "We can't give up yet," Alex said, trying to inject some optimism into the group. "Let's plan another visit, maybe at night. They say that's when the manor truly comes alive." As they left for the night, a sense of unease lingered in the air. The Whispering Manor, in its silent vigil, had given away nothing. But the team was not ready to surrender. Little did they know that the manor was far from done with them, and their next visit would be far more than they bargained for. The evening found Joanna alone in her study, surrounded by piles of old books and manuscripts, the weight of her thoughts as heavy as the silence in the room. "I need some evidence," she murmured, a mix of determination and worry in her voice. She feared her team might lose interest in the documentary if they didn't uncover something soon. Resolved, Joanna grabbed her camera and a small flashlight, setting out into the night towards the Whispering Manor. The moon hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the path, making her journey feel even more solitary and foreboding. Upon reaching the manor, she set up her camera, aiming it at the windows. The manor, bathed in the moonlight, seemed to take on a life of its own, its walls whispering secrets of ages past. Joanna's heart raced as she scanned the windows with her binoculars, and then she saw it. An image of an old woman, her face contorted in a silent scream, appearing in the top-floor window. Gasping, Joanna quickly aimed her camera at the window, but the image had vanished as suddenly as it had appeared. Her heart pounding, she approached the manor's entrance, only to find the door slightly ajar, the padlock and chains lying broken on the ground. "Hello?" Joanna called out tentatively as she stepped inside. The interior of the manor was engulfed in an unnatural silence, so profound that even the sounds from outside ceased to exist. Her flashlight beam cut through the darkness, revealing dust-laden furniture and cobwebbed corners. Then she saw it again, the figure of the old woman, draped in tattered rags, moving towards her at alarming speed. The ghostly woman's mouth was wide open, as if screaming, but no sound emerged. Panic surged through Joanna, and she turned to flee. But the layout of the manor had inexplicably changed, the corridors twisting into a labyrinth maze. The next morning, Joanna's friends, worried after not hearing from her, arrived at her house. Alex knocked on the door, calling her name, but there was no answer. They searched the house, finding her study littered with research on the manor, but Joanna was nowhere to be seen. "Something's wrong," Sarah said, a sense of dread settling over the group. "We need to go to the manor. She might have gone there." As they hurried towards the Whispering Manor, a sense of foreboding gripped them. The manor, once a subject of their documentary, had now become a much more personal and terrifying enigma. Joanna's fate, intertwined with the mysteries of the Whispering Manor, was yet to be uncovered, and her friends were about to step into a realm beyond their wildest fears. Under a sky heavy with clouds, Alex, Sarah, and Michael arrived at the Whispering Manor, a sense of urgency propelling them forward. The manor, in the bleak light of day, stood as a silent sentinel, its secrets locked behind walls of decaying stone and wood. They scanned the exterior, their eyes searching for any sign of Joanna. The windows, with their cracked panes and dusty seals, offered no clues. "She has to be in here somewhere," Michael said, his voice tinged with worry as he flew his drone around the property, hoping for a better vantage point. Approaching the front door, Alex examined the lock and chains. "It's bolted shut, just like when we were here the other day," he announced, his voice echoing slightly in the stillness. "There's no way she could have gotten in here." Sarah, her brow furrowed in concern, added, "Let's head back. We need to think things through, figure out what to do next. Maybe she went somewhere else." As they turned to leave, their footsteps crunching on the gravel path, they remained oblivious till a chilling scene above them. In the top floor window, a faint, ghostly image appeared. It was Joanna, her face twisted in a silent scream, her hands pressed against the glass, as if desperately trying to reach out to her friends. But her screams went unheard, lost in the void of the manor's curse. The image of Joanna flickered like a candle flame in the wind, before vanishing once again into the shadows of the house. The trio walked away, the manor looming in the background, its windows like vacant eyes watching their retreat. Unbeknownst to them, they had just missed a vital clue to the mystery that had now enveloped their lives. The Whispering Manor, with its silent walls and hidden terrors, had claimed another soul, and its appetite for the unknown seemed far from sated. Back in Elmswood, the friends exhausted every avenue in their frantic search for Joanna, but it was as if she had vanished into thin air. The feeling of unease grew stronger with each passing hour. "We need to get into that manor," Michael insisted, his voice laced with determination. "She may have gotten trapped inside. Something's wrong. I can feel it." "You're talking about breaking and entering," Sarah countered, her tone laced with concern and disbelief. But Alex, driven by a mix of worry and resolve, was already on his feet. "Let's go," he said firmly. "I just can't sit here and do nothing." Sarah hesitated, torn between fear and the urge to help. "I'll stay here," she finally said, "in case she calls or comes home." So Alex and Michael set off towards the manor, the weight of their mission pressing heavily upon them. As they approached the imposing front door, they tried to break the lock, but the chains held strong, unyielding to their efforts. "There's a broken window around the back," Michael remembered, recalling his drone footage. "We can get in through there." Carefully, they maneuvered through the cracked window, Michael leading the way. As he stepped inside, he was immediately struck by the eerie silence that enveloped the manor. The sounds of the world outside seems to have been swallowed whole. by the oppressive stillness within. Alex followed suit, clambering through the window. He opened his mouth to speak to Michael, but no sound came out. Confused and alarmed, Michael tried to respond, but he too found himself enveloped in the same inexplicable silence. Panic began to set in. Alex, his eyes wide with fear, turned to escape through the window they had entered, but it was firmly shut, locked from the outside world. In desperation, he wrapped his hand in his jacket and punched the window, hoping to shatter it. But the glass was as hard as steel, unyielding to his efforts. The two men stared at each other in terror, their silent screams echoing in their minds. Then, from the shadows of the long, dark hallway, a figure emerged. An old woman, draped in tattered rags, floating towards them with a ghostly speed. Her mouth was open in a silent scream, her face twisted in agony and despair. Alex and Michael, trapped and voiceless, could only watch in horror as the spectral figure drew closer, its silent scream a chilling reminder of the manor's dark secret. The reality of the situation was now terrifyingly clear. They were not alone in the Whispering Manor, and escape might not be an option. As the hours ticked by with no word from Alex or Michael, Sarah's worry turned into a gnawing sense of dread. She attempted to call their phones repeatedly, but each call went unanswered, echoing the void of uncertainty. The silence from her friends was deafening, and she knew she had to take action. Determined to uncover more about the Whispering Manor, Sarah turned to the internet, sifting through the layers of urban myths and ghost stories that shrouded the house's true history. It was then that a spark of inspiration struck her. She decided to delve into the records of the previous owners of the manor. Her search led her to the Dwights, an old family with deep roots in the town's history. She scoured through the archives and public records, piecing together the fragmented past of the family. There were no living relatives, but in her search, Sarah stumbled upon a chilling tale. The story spoke of Mr. Dwight, a tyrannical figure who imposed a cruel rule of silence over the women and servants. If anyone dared to speak, they were subjected to brutal floggings. The tale took a darker turn, with the account of the Dwight children, who in a fit of vengeance had murdered their father after discovering he had flogged their mother so severely that she lost her ability to speak. Abigail Dwight, Sarah whispered to herself, a shiver running down her spine. She may be the key to this. Armed with this new knowledge, and a resolve steeled by fear for her friends, Sarah decided to confront the horrors of the manor alone. She gathered a few essential tools, including a camera and a voice recorder, in hopes of documenting anything she might encounter. As she approached the manor, the sun was setting, casting long, ominous shadows across the path. The manor stood in front of her, its windows dark and foreboding. With each step, Sarah felt the weight of the manor's tragic history pressing down on her. She found the same broken window through which Alex and Michael had entered, and climbed through, her heart pounding in her chest. The silence enveloped her immediately, a suffocating blanket that seemed to absorb all sound. Sarah moved cautiously through the dimly lit corridors, her flashlight dancing off the decrepit walls and faded portraits. She could feel the oppressive atmosphere of the manor, as if the very air was thick with the whispers of the past. "Abigail Dwight!" Sarah called out softly, her voice quivering in the silence. "I know your pain, I'm here to help." As she ventured deeper into the manor, Sarah could feel the presence of something unseen, a lingering sorrow that permeated the air. She knew that whatever secrets the Whispering Manor held, she was about to come face to face with them. Her friend's fate hung precariously in the balance as she stepped further into the heart of the darkness. Sarah's heart raced as she entered the dining room, her flashlight illuminating the grand, dusty space. There, she witnessed a ghostly apparition that made her blood run cold. A man lying dead at the dining table, evidently poisoned. Standing over him were two spectral figures, a young woman and a young man dressed in 18th century clothing, their faces etched with both horror and relief. As quickly as the image appeared, it faded away, but not before the young adults turned their ghostly gazes towards Sarah, acknowledging her presence. The silence in the manor was overwhelming, a stark reminder that the world outside no longer reached her ears. With each step, Sarah felt as if she was delving deeper into the manor's haunted history. Moving cautiously, she continued through the house, eventually entering the kitchen area. There, she was confronted with 3 more ghostly figures, their faces and bodies marked with the scars of whippings. They looked at Sarah with sorrowful eyes, and one by one placed a finger to their lips in a silent gesture of shushing. The message was clear. Silence was a rule, a curse that bound them. Terrified, Sarah quickly exited the kitchen. Her search for her friends led her upstairs, where the atmosphere grew even heavier, the shadows deeper. Reaching the top of the stairs, she noticed one of the doors slightly ajar. With a deep breath, she pushed the door open and stepped inside. The room was dimly lit by the fading light coming through the window. In the center, on the floor, sat an old woman, her ghostly form weeping in silence. As Sarah watched, the old woman lifted her head, her face contorting into a silent scream, a chilling image of fear and desperation. Abruptly, the old woman's expression changed to one of intense fear. She looked past Sarah towards the door, then back at her, and mouthed a single word with urgent clarity. "Hide!" Sarah's heart pounded in her chest as she turned to look behind her, expecting to see some new horror. The old woman's warning was clear, and Sarah knew she had to act quickly. The manor was revealing its dark past, but it also held her friends somewhere within its cursed walls. As she searched for a hiding place, Sarah's mind raced, piecing together the tragic stories the manor whispered, hoping it would lead her to Alex, Michael, and Joanna, and to a way to break the suffocating silence of the whispering manor. Crouching in the cramped space of a small cupboard, Sarah's heart pounded in her chest as the ghostly image of the old woman faded away, leaving her in a suffocating silence. Peering through a gap in the cupboard, her eyes widened in fear at the sight that unfolded before her. In the center of the room stood a menacing, spectral figure of a man, his expression stern and unyielding. He clutched a whip, which he rhythmically struck against his hand. A chill ran down Sarah's spine as she realized this was Mr. Dwight, the tyrant of the manor, whose presence still dominated the house, even in death. His ghostly visage symbolized the oppressive silence that had cursed the manor. As quickly as it appeared, the apparition vanished, leaving Sarah alone again in the eerie quietude. She cautiously emerged from the cupboard, her every move silent in the manor's unnerving stillness. Approaching the window, she attempted to scream for help, but no sound escaped her lips. The manor's curse of silence was absolute. With a growing sense of dread, Sarah ventured back down the stairs, her steps leading her to an old basement, a part of the manor she hadn't explored yet. The air grew colder as she descended, the weight of the house's tragic history pressing down on her. In the dim light of the basement, she saw them. Her 3 friends, Alex, Michael, and Joanna, stood motionless, facing the wall, their backs to Sarah. Frantically, she tried to call out to them, but her voice was swallowed by the silence. In unison, they turned towards her, their faces pale and haunted. Then, in a chilling moment, each raised a finger to their lips in a silent "shh." before turning back to face the wall. The realization hit Sarah with terrifying clarity. Her friends were trapped, bound by the same spectral silence that gripped the manor. The curse of Mr. Dwight lingered, a relentless force ensuring that no voice could be heard within these walls. Sarah's mind raced as she stood in the gloomy basement, surrounded by her motionless friends. She needed to find a way to break the curse, to release them and herself from the manor's grasp. The key, she knew, lay in the manor's tragic past and the spirits that haunted its walls. With a renewed sense of purpose, Sarah steeled herself for the daunting task ahead, to confront the manor's ghosts and uncover the secret to break in its eerie silence. Breathless and terrified, Sarah spun around to find Mr. Dwight, standing ominously behind her, his long black whip in hand. His face was a mask of stern, unyielding terror. Without a moment's hesitation, he raised his arm and brought the whip down on Sarah with a vicious strike. She felt a searing pain as a bloodied mark appeared on her face. She tried to scream, but the manor's curse held her voice prisoner, leaving her in silent agony. As Mr. Dwight raised his whip for another strike, Sarah darted past him, her every instinct screaming to escape. She had a sudden thought: the dining room, the site of Mr. Dwight's demise. Maybe, just maybe, there was hope there. Bursting into the dining room, she was met with an oppressive energy, different from anywhere else in the house. Mr. Dwight materialized in the center of the room, his whip ready to unleash more pain. In a desperate move, Sarah grabbed a silver serving plate and hurled it at the ghostly figure. It passed right through him, but as it crashed against the wall, it produced a loud, resounding sound. To her astonishment, Mr. Dwight clutched his ears in pain. Seizing the opportunity, she smashed a china plate on the floor, the crash echoing through the room. Each sound seemed to weaken the ghostly tyrant as he fell to his knees in agony. Sarah continued her assault, breaking a cup, then a smaller plate, each crash a symphony of pain for Mr. Dwight. But soon, there were no more plates to throw. She tried to scream, but her voice was still trapped in silence. Racing to retrieve the silver serving dish from across the room, she felt the cruel lash of Mr. Dwight's whip across her back. She fell, each subsequent strike pushing her further into darkness. As she lay there, consciousness slipping away, the last thing she saw was Mr. Dwight's ghostly form, his dominance over the manor unbroken. Days later, a group of curious friends stood outside the Whispering Manor, discussing the old ghost stories. "Nothing but kids' tales," one of them remarked dismissively. As they walked away, lost in laughter and skepticism, they failed to notice the ghostly image of a young woman in the top window. Sarah, screaming in eternal silence for help. And so, the Whispering Manor continued its silent vigil, its secrets and horrors trapped within, waiting for the next unwary soul to uncover its tragic past. And if you're still looking to fulfill your thirst for more horror, don't forget to check out this next video, unless of course you're frozen with fear already.